Hello, my name is Taylor McCausland. I'm a graduate student here at Liberty University, and this is my interpersonal communication project for HSCO 508. Throughout the time in this class, I've gained deep insight on the importance of communication that has changed the way I communicate. Although this presentation is mostly about myself and what I have learned about communication, I hope that you may be able to gain insight that you can apply to your own life as well. Understanding both sides of communication, listening and speaking, has already had an effect on the communicator I want to be, as how it will affect my career. Many times during this semester, during a conversation that I've been having, in my mind I've gone back on strategies and skills that we've learned and I've used them. At other times I've looked back on a conversation and I realize where I have failed to be a good communicator and saw how that led the conversation astray or to a place of frustration. To begin this presentation, I would just like to go over what I will be speaking on. So first, some might ask, what is interpersonal communications? Therefore, I will show that and define that in example, in addition to what my overarching goal is. Next, I will go over a little bit about who I am and the different behavioral blends that I've acquired, taking the Uniquely You profile, in addition to communication barriers that I bestow. Also, I will speak on noise pollution, internal as well as external, and strategies and resources that I can access in order to become a better communicator and break down the barriers. In conclusion, I will explain my action plan and my goals for communication. So what is interpersonal communication? Since this whole project is based on it, it may be helpful to define what it is. It is a subset of communication, meaning that, like communication, there's conversations, identity of people's, nexting, choices, and collaborations involved. In communication, there are two different parts to it, which is to give and receive, or to talk and listen. When this happens in communication, the uniqueness of a person is bestowed, and it is easiest when you already know that person and you can trust them, as defined in Stewart's book. Interpersonal labels the kind in ways that maximize the presence of personal. Also defined in Stewart's book, helps you understand a little bit more of what it is. So as we continue in this presentation, you will understand more of what interpersonal communication is and what it looks like to be used. So my overarching goal is to allow God to always be the leader of every conversation I have with others. So therefore, it's not me saying what I want to say to them, but God saying what He needs to say to them. I will work towards always listening to others actively to show I care, as well as paying close attention to their opinions and feelings about certain topics. I will strive to become better at confronting others in order to build them up, going in a holy way as Christ would want them, and not worry about what others think of me, but worry about speaking the truth and being a woman of God, helping others to do the will for their life. So enlarging the conversation in simple terms, which I got from an article, means to understand and respond from a perspective that is larger than your own. And reading different articles and the books, I made up a definition that made sense to me, and that is understanding the other person you are communicating with by responding to them in a way that you are actively seeking to carry on the conversation by being open and to learning things for yourself, as well as actively listening to what they are saying. In return, this will allow for more effective communication. So, because many people think very differently about certain topics, it is important to understand others' views in order to maintain relationships with them. So, in addition, you may add to the conversation with your different points of view to improve what each of you got out of the conversation. And also, to understand the view of another's, you must enlarge the conversation through recognizing the differences and being intentional to comprehend what the speaker is saying. So this can be done through self-disclosure, opening up more about yourself, and also empathetically listening by focusing on the person, encouraging the person to speak, and reflecting back to them what they just said to you. So a little bit about myself. I am 22 years old. I graduated last year from Liberty University with my undergraduate, and now I will graduate in May with my master's in human service counseling, and my cognate is marriage and family. I live now currently here, but I'm getting married this summer in July, so I'll be moving back home to Pennsylvania. My family consists of my 2 older sisters and my oldest sister's husband and their new baby that they just brought into this world, and my mother and my father, who are deeply in love. I currently am a nanny, and my career goal is to become a doula. So a little bit about behavioral blends before I tell you what mine is. On this slide, it explains how they're broken up into 4 different basic personality types. D means active and task-oriented, I, active people-oriented, S, passive people-oriented, or C, passive task-oriented. The reason that understanding the blend is important, as Carbonell explains, is that understanding the personality pattern is one of the keys to improving your relationships and solving the people puzzle. Excuse me. So understanding others can lead to more effective conversations full of inhaling, as Stewart explains, is known as perceiving and listening, part of communication, and exhaling, which is the expressing, and disclosing, which consumes of a desire to listen to the other person you are talking to, story with a genuine desire to learn and understand the words they are speaking. So my behavioral blend is competent, influencing, and specialist. This behavioral blend specifically explains that I am a people person, as well as I am more passive than active. I can be outgoing, but I do enjoy my quietness. I like to relate to others and be of an influence to them with my encouraging and relatable behaviors, although at times I can be critical and tend to be judgmental. I tend to not want to be in charge, but I do like to be a leader if there is not one. I am one that does not like conflict, and I try to avoid it as much as I can. I do enjoy the peace. But knowing this about myself can help me understand the different behavioral blends so I can understand others' behavioral blends more. So through understanding others, your conversations can be more efficient and effective, and the other person will feel that you are understanding who they are and their views. So positives of my behavioral blends and negatives of my behavioral blends. Like anything, there's positive and negatives. So some of my negatives about my behavior is that I can think too deeply into solving problems because I tend to be a fixer. And because of that, I can sometimes be opinionated because I want to help them, although through judgment, that's not a way to help someone. I also feel I always have to please people, so I tend not to be direct to them in fear of losing them as a friend, and I tend to be indecisive in decision making because I want to make everyone happy. And then on the positive side, I am caring, I am thinking, and I am a good problem solver, although sometimes too in-depth. I don't feel the need to be in charge, and I am friendly and kind. And in a relationship, I want a deep relationship with you. I don't want to be shallow. I want to know a lot about you. So in the book, Listening, the Forgotten Skill, it was explained about the myth that only speaking presents power, proving it wrong. Although a barrier to effective listening is because we have viewed that power comes only from speaking. Although there is power in listening, especially when it's done correctly. Listening in a way that you have good eye contact, that you are attentive has positive power. So some physical barriers of communication include fatigue or illness or other things that physically occur and can cause a negative influence upon your listening. Moving on to semantic barrier, I really liked this quote by Alan Greenspan. It says, "I know you believe you understand what I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant." I think there's a lot of power in that. explaining that people have many different circumstances that they go through in their life, and that gives different words, the same words, different meanings. So I think that it's good to just understand the meaning that those people have connected to certain words, because it may be different than yours. So some of my communication barriers are silence, my emotions control me, and I strive to please everyone. So I feel that I always have to try to fill the silence in with words, but that doesn't allow the other person to think or speak. And in Stewart's book, it says silence is a key part of communication, as it can build a deeper connection. And sometimes not saying anything shows the most love, warmth, and sympathy. At times I allow my emotions to control me, which in return can bring me to be critical to the ones that I love the most. So my words towards them can become hurtful, but I need to allow my caring and positive side to overtake those critical words. My last communication barrier is that I just try to please everyone. I tend to overlook a close friend's wrongdoing because I am in fear of losing them. Although I need to not try to hide my thoughts and use my positive and insightful wisdom to bestow upon them to help them. I think that self-disclosing myself to others can help also improve that my friends know my heart, and they know that when I do expose their wrongdoings or try to help them in a way that they may be needing help in, that I'm doing it because I care for them and I love them and not to hurt them. So noise pollutions, this can be defined as anything that is of a distraction due internally or externally during communication or a conversation. So the main problem with noise pollution is that it creates a barrier between you and the communicator, causing you to miss out important details of a conversation. So 35% of the meaning of communication comes from words, and the remainder comes from body language. So because of this, your relationships may be impacted as you are not effectively listening and you're not looking at the person, paying attention to the speaker as you are communicating and not being distracted by the noise pollution internally or externally can reveal much about what the person is trying to convey. So certain internal noise pollution is biased listening, physically, self-conscious or phobias, and external loud noises, traffic, tapping of a pencil, phone calls, or room temperature may be too hot or cold. And Withers explains, effective communication between people can only occur if each individual is able to reduce the power of internal noise as well as external noise in their head. So some resources that I have taken away from this class and strategies would be the talker listener card. I thought that was just a really wonderful tool to use. It can help me realize that when I am not listening, I am not to pass judgment, and I need to remain calm when I don't own the problem. In addition, at times I can overlook a friend's wrongdoing because I don't want to lose them as a friend, as I just stated. But I think that if I use parathinking while putting their thoughts into my own words, I may help them to recognize more what their wrongdoing is by simply stating back to them what they are telling me. And it may be done in less of a harsh way, just working it out together and not coming at them in a judgmental or critical way. So my action plan. In order to enlarge my conversation and to make my overarching goal a reality, I will first remember my role as a speaker and as a listener. Having empathy towards others can show others that you want to take time and effort to fully understand their thinking and feeling. I think part of my action plan, I need to be more empathetical when I listen, show more empathy. And I must also actively listen, which can be done by overcoming noise pollution, by jotting a note down, or just constantly looking at them in their eye. And by allowing God to take over my words and my heart, He will allow me for understanding rather than harsh words to flow from my mouth. And I think that using parathinking when being confrontational will help me to not worry about losing a friend, but it can be done in a way that is more loving, and it can create a more open relationship for my friend and I together. So words to remember. If we just go to the Bible and we see what God has to say about communication, He says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Ephesians 4:29. I think that wrapping this presentation up, this is exactly what we need to live by. That what comes out of our mouths must be building up to others according to what they need, listening to what they need, and that they will be benefited by what we say, and that we may be benefited by what they say as well. Thank you. Have a good day.